So just to reorient ourselves, because we're going to change subject in a minute, just to reorient ourselves, we're in the 6th chapter of Bava Metzia, which begins Hasocher et ha umanim. Someone recruits craftsmen. So someone's, and you could say this is a classic. We're into classic issues of employment, which we might come across today. And most we'll see as we get to the end of the 6th chapter and through the 7th chapter, that we get into all kinds of issues related to kind of what happens if you employ someone else or give somebody else some work. But in the middle of the 6th chapter, the Mishnah somehow goes off into a tangent, and it brings all kinds of other cases which begin with the words hasocher et, someone who employs. So we saw, for example, we saw someone who hired a cow, and by the way, the implements of the cow must have hired a plowshare as well to plow in the hills, and he plowed it in the valley. Maybe he hired for the valley and plowed in the hills. And again, the issue is the liability for the kit that went with the cow. And the last Mishnah in this chain, hasocher, is someone who's loading a donkey. So we're now in the 5th Mishnah of the 6th chapter. Hasocher et chamor lahavi chitim, someone who hired a donkey to load up, to bring wheat. Vehevi seorim, he brought barley. Or maybe tvuah, maybe he hired it for grain. Vehevi teven, and used it to carry straw. And both of these examples, the wheat being swapped out for barley and the grain being swapped out for the straw, these are dense materials which are being swapped out for less dense ones. So we've got the same weight, but we've got more bulk. We got more bulk if we carry straw than if we carry grain. We have more bulk if we carry barley than if we carry wheat. And that's a problem for the animal. The animal has to carry weight, but it has to carry volume as well. So the Mishnah rules, Chayav shehanefa kashe ha'masui. He's liable. Someone who changes the type of load on this animal to something which is same weight but higher volume is liable if the animal has a problem, if the animal injures itself. Shehanefa kashe kamasui, because bulk seems to be more difficult to carry than just pure weight. So what kind of bulk is acceptable? Well, let's just keep going in the Mishnah for a second. Lavi letech chitim. So he hired it to take a letech. A letech is 15 seah. This will be important in a minute. He brought it to bring a letech of wheat. Vehivi letech sorim patur. And it carried a letech of barley. He's not liable. These are the same volumes, by the way. These are the same volumes. And actually, the barley is going to weigh a bit less on this in this measure, because we've said the barley is less dense. But if he increased its burden, he's going to be liable. He's going to be liable for any damage to the animal. So the Mishnah asks, what kind of increase in his burden does he have to make him liable? In other words, what matters? So we'll have a look at, Somchos Omer. Somchos, it's a Greek name, by the way. So we're seeing people were using Greek names in the time of the Mishnah. Somchos is actually a student of Rabbi Meir. So he's really from the second century, probably. Somchos Omer Mishem Rabbi Meir. Somchos is saying in the name of Rabbi Meir, in the name of his teacher. Seala gamal ushloshet kabim lachamor. a seah for a camel, and 3 cubs. That's half a seah for a donkey. So what does that mean in practice? Well, we've said a letech is 15 seah. If we add one more, according to Somchos, and this is the final opinion in the Mishnah, by the way, if we add another seah, in other words, we make the 15 seah up to 16, on a camel, we're going to be liable. And as far as the donkey's concerned, if we add in half a seah, 3 calves, we're similarly going to be liable. So this is the final Mishnah in the chain of Hasocher. And then in the next Mishnah, which we'll look at tomorrow, we're going to get back to questions of employment. But we've learned from this chain of Mishnayot, all beginning with Hasocher, that essentially when you rent something, you have to keep by the conditions that are stipulated when you rent the object. And if you don't maintain that condition, if you don't use it as you've contracted to use it, then you are liable for any damage to the object or to the animal, to its equipment.